Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I am back. This is part 3 of What If Deku Had Solo Leveling, or What If Deku Had the System. As always, if you enjoy, show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy the video. And as always, show some love in the comment section, or also suggest things that you would like to see in the near future. With that said, I want to not waste any of your time because I'm trying to get into this part ASAP. Last time I tried to record this, it let's just say didn't go too well. It all cut off for some dumb reason. Not sure why that happened, but nonetheless, we are here and we are here now. And yeah, let's get right into the what if. Let's get it. Izuku Midoriya is with Class 1A at the USJ. The USJ is the start of what truly Izuku Midoriya is capable of. Because, well, he's going to be taking on the strongest being there, being that of the Nomu. He's going to be taking on the Nomu, and this Nomu is no joke. The Nomu seems to have power that rivals even someone like All Might, and it also seems as if the Nomu will be no joke in terms of physical capabilities. And before Aizawa could even stop him from doing anything, Izuku would jump into action immediately. There would be no hesitation with Izuku Midoriya. He would jump into action, facing down and absolutely smashing every last villain there. I mean, we're talking the entire group of villains. He would eliminate them almost instantaneously, and then he would turn to the Nomus, the Nomu. The Nomu is a pretty big deal, and he has a quest to defeat or kill the Nomu specifically, so he's going to make sure to do that. He wants to make sure that the Nomu dies and that there is no chance that this Nomu has a way of not only living, but also a way of hurting some of his classmates or other people in general. So he decides to make sure that this Nomu goes down. He's going to make sure that this Nomu has no chance at surviving, not one bit. And immediately, he would absolutely lay blows into the Nomu that most people around him can't even see. This hulking figure, being that of Izuku Midoriya, would begin throwing lefts, rights, uppercuts, everything you could think of in unison. Absolutely putting a beating on the Nomu, and you could see the Nomu's skin slowly but surely starting to degrade. It seems like the Nomu's skin is getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And as it continues to get more and more weak, it seems as if the Nomu, well, he's slowing down as well. And it seems as if, Izuku continues to show weakness after weakness that the Nomu currently has. And also on top of that, his new ability found from that S rank like dungeon is definitely showing off its capabilities, and it seems to be at a perfect time. It seems as if the system knows what he's about to go up against, or at least something similar to what he has to go up against, and it seems to be benefiting him greatly. Izuku is putting the absolute hands on this Nomu, and he is beating the Nomu into submission. So much so that all the commands that are being told from Shigaraki and anybody else trying to basically survive aren't going through. All of these commands are just flat out not working, and all of these commands are flat out just not actually happening. Everybody and all the villains are currently defeated except for Shigaraki and Kurogiri, but for the most part, I mean, it is flat out an onslaught of, the Nomu itself. Shigaraki is actually completely and utterly in shock at the fact that Izuku is this strong. He must have a quirk that allows him to gather strength like absolute insanity, but here's the thing. Izuku seems to, be pretty much in a place of complete domination at this point, and Shigaraki wasn't ready for it at all. He begins to question to himself if this was some sort of trap. Now, it might sound odd, but at the end of the day, it could be reality. Did All For One set him up to fail? No, that's ridiculous. There's no way All For One set him up to fail by any means. But how did this even happen? I mean, seriously, like how would it even get to this point, and how would this even, well, occur? As it seems as if they miscalculated how strong this Izuku Midoriya truly is, or maybe All For One had no idea who this person was in the first place. Now, they did have limited information on the kids or the teenagers and their quirks, but if All For One knew someone like him existed, there would have been way more precautions in general. There's just no way that he would have just easily been like, oh yeah, it's fine and everything's gonna be all right. No, definitely not. He definitely would have taken this far more seriously, and he would have given Shigaraki far more to work with, because before All Might even arrives, the Nomu's already in a pile of dust. Izuku Midoriya taking out the entirety of the Nomu's just ability to regenerate, and the fact is, he absolutely obliterates this Nomu. And he does it with all the skills that he's gained throughout this time, and he does it with every last one of them. I mean, everything that he's gained to this point, everything he's gained this entire time. I mean, Izuku just flat out just got to a different level already, and he's gotten to a different kind of state of power that many heroes or many villains, anybody would not have known of. And when All Might arrives, seeing Kurogiri and Shigaraki being the only villains left over, it's pretty obvious what the villains are about to do, and that's get the hell out of there. And that's exactly what happens. They just dip out as fast as possible. Now, with this all occurring, Izuku would gain quite a bit of experience points, leveling up a little bit, but also gaining kind of more passive bonuses in terms of the Nomu. And this first passive bonus that he actually gains from the Nomu is the ability to basically tell if something is actually dead or not, and also kind of regulate others' heartbeats. Now, by regulate, I mean literally be able to tell if their heart is properly beating or if they are completely, well, dead or brain dead. And that's what the Nomu more or less was, a brain dead monster, a monster that used to be a human, but that human was mutated, changed, and experimented on, so much so to the point that he was nowhere near a human being. So now that he has that passive ability, he's able to actually see those things. But I'm gonna be honest, Izuku sees this as kind of an odd thing. I mean, what would he actually need something like this for? Yes, he understands what the capability is, but what's the point of actually having it? I mean, he doesn't need to know if someone is dead necessarily. I mean, yes, it would be okay to be able to tell if someone is gone or resuscitatable or anything like that, but it doesn't necessarily seem like that's the whole reason why he has this power. It doesn't seem like it's some sort of support power to make sure things are, you know, resuscitatable in that direction, right? Or what's the time limit on someone's death? I mean, he has no idea what the point of this truly is, but nonetheless, it's kind of beyond the point. It's at least something semi-useful to an extent, right? So he can't really complain necessarily, and there's not anything wrong with having an extra ability or extra powers in general. Now, with that said, there's a lot of things that are coming up very, very soon, and those things would, more specifically, encapsulate, well, this so-called UA Sports Festival. But in all transparency, Izuku is the #1 student, and Izuku, well, flat out is just not likely to lose this UA Sports Festival. I mean, at the end of the day, Izuku Midoriya is absolutely strong. So powerful to the point that he makes things look like an absolute joke. So when you enter into this cavalry battle, right, and you enter into this obstacle course race, and all of these things, Izuku will win first place in every single category, especially the normal stuff. Now, when we get to the 1 versus 1s, we are talking about a totally different thing. And I'm not saying a totally different thing in terms of him losing, I'm saying a totally different thing in terms of what's at stake. Because Izuku Midoriya would see a quest on his screen saying that he needs to win the tournament or die. Now, this would lead him to have a totally different mindset. So much so that he doesn't care about anything else. And that includes helping somebody unlock further potential. And that would include stopping or flat out not convincing Todoroki to use his fire side. Now, would this set Todoroki back a little bit? Of course. But at the same time, he won't play this weird game with Shinso where he talks to him. He's going to knock him out of the ring ASAP. He's not going to play games with Todoroki or try to convince him to use his fire side to be stronger and give it his all. He doesn't care. And this actually leads to Bakugo getting his 1 versus 1 that he actually wanted so badly. And that's good for him. I mean, at the end of the day, Bakugo wanted that so badly and still wants that so badly. And he gets his, let's just say, his ass beat pretty bad. I mean, there is no way around it, but Bakugo gets absolutely destroyed. I mean, there is no way around that idea. Bakugo is out of his league by a large margin. And Izuku would come out on top and he would gain bonuses after bonuses, levels after levels. And this is where he would decide himself that he's actually going to take on a very minor agency, right? He has an internship that is coming up and he could go to like some of these bigger internships or go here or go there or whatever. And he does get an odd conversation that would lead him into thinking that maybe there's something going on further than he could possibly imagine. And that conversation is with All Might. Yes, I said it, with All Might. Now, for starters, Izuku hasn't really talked much to All Might. I mean, outside of the fact that he is technically one of his teachers. But overall, he hasn't really gone out of his way to, like, you know, have full-on conversations with Izuku and vice versa. Now, Izuku would get an invitation from All Might to actually go train with someone who trained All Might, being that of Gran Torino. But there is something that also needs to be instated, and he tells him that the only way he's basically allowed to do this is if he agrees to actually doing something for him as well. Now, of course, Izuku doesn't know what he's talking about and says that he hasn't even decided 100% what he wants to do, and he doesn't even know if he truly wants to go train with All Might's past teacher. He doesn't know if that's really going to be good for him. So he decides to kind of be wary of this offer. And eventually they have a conversation, and this conversation would veer on to the idea of All Might being able to pass down his powers, offering Izuku the chance at one for all. But as he's having this conversation with All Might, the system begins to reject the idea of one for all in his capacity. Seemingly, there might be some conflict or anything into that manner, but immediately Deku has to refuse one for all and says that someone else could definitely benefit from it, and he hopes that he can find somebody better suited than him personally. But he apologizes to All Might, basically telling him that it is truly a pleasure basically being offered this, and he wants to know, is there any chance that he can still train with someone like Gran Torino, who trained All Might, even though he won't be able to, well, literally utilize one for all and benefit from that as well. Now, this would lead to All Might saying, you know what, why not? Let me allow the kid to actually work with and also train with someone like Gran Torino. Maybe it's going to benefit him like greatly and even more. Now, this leads to Izuku actually accepting and going to train with Gran Torino during this time. And this training is beneficial, don't get me wrong. And it's actually good because Izuku's able to learn a new fighting style. And a fighting style that, by the way, suits him pretty damn well. Especially because this leads him to realizing that the gauntlets he has, well, yeah, they're all great and dandy, but imagine if he got armor or kind of shin-like kind of weapons that would allow him to have lethal kicks and be able to implement this even more. I mean, this could be amazing for him just through combat and so much more. So this is something that he's super interested in and super just flat out grateful to learn and grateful to just get more insight on. Now, of course, there are some interesting things that will happen now. We are talking about Gran Torino, and things very similar to the original canon would occur, and that would include Hosu City. Now, there would be some threats in terms of people or villains not really being too fond of going out, especially after dealing with such a strong student, but forcing themselves to go out. This would lead to Izuku having conflict with the one and only Stain, or the hero killer. Now, this would lead to Stain and also Izuku having a one-on-one battle. At the end of the day, we talked about it before, Todoroki's probably not over the whole daddy issues thing he has, and well, yes, there could be a chance that Izuku or that Todoroki decides to still be around his father in terms of actually deciding to train and be involved in his whole, agency. But there's also a massive chance that they flat out or he decides to not mess with them at all. He's not going to want to be involved with those people or his father in general. Now, this would lead to, like I said, Izuku versus the hero killer. Now, I could say flat out that the hero killer has no chance, but I mean, yes, that may be true, but this combat would be one for the ages, and one that the quest and also the system would believe to be something of merit in terms of, well, literally telling him that he either wins and defeats him or flat out dies, right? It doesn't actually say that he needs to kill Stain, but it does say that he flat out needs to beat him, and this would lead to Izuku kind of gaining even more experience. So much so that he actually gains another fighting style from Stain himself, and it seems as if Stain's martial arts experience is going to be gifted to him via the quest. Now, this fight isn't easy necessarily. He takes on Stain and he has some maneuvers he has to defend from, but at the same time, his durability allows it, so when Stain cuts through his body or tries to, I mean, it doesn't really make a mark. Maybe a tiny little scratch, but that tiny little scratch is far from enough to actually stop him from literally dying. It's not enough to stop him from basically being subdued or anything like that. It's nothing crazy. I mean, literally, this little scratch doesn't even draw blood, so it doesn't actually hurt Izuku a large degree, and he's able to easily defend himself, get out of there, and so on and so forth. And it's kind of a benefit to him just fighting Stain, because he shows off some of the weaknesses he has in his own fighting ability. And flat out, it is pretty absurd how good Stain truly is. But the capture of Stain is obviously another thing, so you can't really deny the things that he truly was able to do or really capable of doing. Now, with that said, this would put an end to the internships of UA and what's going on. Flat out, this was kind of a full-on ruckus, and at the end of the day, Tenya Ida was very lucky that Izuku was there to help, and Izuku would begin to have a conversation with Aizawa about his next final exam. Now, flat out, I'm gonna say this straight up, Izuku is one of, if not the smartest person on the planet. He is super hyper intelligent at this point, and he's one of those people that can learn things almost instantaneously. So maybe he's not technically the smartest person on the planet, but if you gave him everything to ever be learned on the planet, he'd be able to absorb it in a matter of days. Now, this isn't something that really needs to be done for Izuku. He hasn't really thought about this by any means, and not something he really seeks after, because at the end of the day, he wants to be a hero. He doesn't need to be all this extra stuff, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to be the smartest man on the planet. He doesn't care about being that. Now, this would lead to Izuku being able to ace the final exam like super easily. Like, he'd be able to easily ace the final exam. But here's the real thing. The written exam and the practical are two very different things. So what's going to happen for him in the practical exam? Who is he going to take on? Well, it could be someone like All Might, which that would be the most practical probably thing to do. Or it could be someone as strong, a little bit weaker, or whatever. Now, this would lead them to having a bit of an issue. I mean, at the end of the day, they are kind of contemplating with the idea of who they actually want to stack up against them. But All Might brings actually an interesting idea to their plate. He actually says that, how about this? How about he doesn't do your traditional practical exam? How about he doesn't actually fight a teacher? How about you just have him do something that's a little bit uncomfortable for him specifically? In which this would be interesting. I mean, what would be uncomfortable? And Aizawa would immediately get an idea. What would be uncomfortable for the strongest person, arguably the strongest, if not the strongest person, maybe in Japan at this point? What would be different? What has he not done? Well, one thing he hasn't done is been able to actually run a team without carrying or being a substantial part of that team. So they think that they will put his mind and great knowledge to use by allowing him to actually plan and strategize every single person's game plan for basically taking down whatever teacher they have to take down. And this right here was a pretty good idea, because he actually stayed up for a full-on day strategizing every single person's game plan. And let's just say everybody does some pretty damn impressive things because of it. Izuku was given something that he could also learn and also be able to absorb himself, and he passes his written exam and also practical exam with flying colors through this, because at the end of the day, they told him he would fail if they followed his plan and lost. And every single person, to an extent, was able to win, either through escape or through handcuffing the person or the teacher that they had to go against. And it was pretty damn impressive overall. And Izuku has these plans, or had these plans be enacted very, very specifically to the person that they were dealing with. Now, it could have been to help with their confidence. It could have been to help with their own strategy, or anything, or all the above. Flat out, it was something that was very, very useful for everyone, and very, very useful for even Izuku, because at the end of the day, at this point, he's seen as someone that can stop anything. And that might be true. He might flat out be able to stop anything. Izuku might be able to literally beat anybody or anyone. But the thing is, life and power and strength and all of the above is never that simple. There's going to be people out there that fail, fall, die, get injured, and frankly, there's nothing you can do about it. And this exercise, yes, it showed the intelligence, it showed his ability to actually make a plan and structure things in that direction, but this also showed him that when things go off the rails, people make choices, and those choices cannot be changed. And that's something that Izuku himself really never thought about. He has the strength, he has the power, he himself can literally affect things in a way nobody else can, at least when he's on the battlefield. But when he's not, things do go off the rails, things do change, and things that cannot be stopped truly do happen. And that is what he'll truly learn. Something that it seems like the system has been preparing him for a very long time. Because soon they would go off, they would have their training, forest training camp, forest training arc, and the training would go well. Everything would be fine. Izuku Midoriya would have a pretty good time training, kind of talking to other people and kind of gaining their trust and flat out just mingling with his classmates, meeting new people and so on. But of course, things change very quickly. Things change quicker than you could possibly imagine. Because Izuku would watch as things in the camp would go somber and change faster than you could possibly imagine. And when a little kid is threatened, when a child, yes, a child is threatened and more or less threatened to be killed, those are times that things are terrifying. Because the villains, they don't follow a rule book. They don't follow jack squat. What they follow is their own greedy desires. And when one person, a giant being, a giant creature of a man, faces down with a little kid by the name of Koda, and he's about to squeeze the life out of him, Izuku was there, luckily, to stop it, beating him down so badly that he was almost unrecognizable. Yes, Izuku's realization of the changes, realization of some people, maybe they're just better off dead, is something that continues going through his mind. Heroes like All Might, people like them, they are the people that are worth a living, breathing air. They are worth being alive and being cared for, people loving them. But these people that threaten children, hurt them, and do all these horrible things, they do not deserve life. But Izuku knows that he was taught differently by Aizawa and many others. He can't take this life, even though he would love to so badly. But nonetheless, that man, muscular, he is beaten down and humbled far greater than you could possibly imagine. And they would drag him off on a stretcher because Izuku Midoriya was taking his frustrations out on him. And soon, Izuku would realize that life truly is unfair. Because the people that are allowed to live, the people like All Might who have been doing great things, sometimes have consequences. Because no good deed goes unpunished. And soon, he would see that in motion. Because after the invasion, after the entirety of the invasion of the forest training camp, we would fall into a time of awkwardness. This time would be something that everybody would remember for their entire lives. Because once the forest training camp was over, done, and solidified, they would all head home. But this home, they don't realize that a plan was being plotted. A plan was being implemented. They had no idea that, All for One was creating something that nobody knew was going to happen, and that would be a confrontation with the one and only All Might. He would face off with All Might once again, but this confrontation would be different. This situation would be different. Nomus surrounding All Might. Nomus killing, hurting, destroying. All Might would scrounge everything for himself. People would watch on big screens. All Might would knock down and knock out and destroy one Nomu, then another Nomu, and then another. All of them down, done. All of them down. But one person stands there, still breathing, still capable, and still ready to take the life of our beloved All Might. The heroes would try to step in, but even them, they can't do anything to All for One, and frankly, they're occupied with even more Nomus, occupied with more and more people. And this is where things get terrifying, because Izuku would be watching, but soon everybody would realize that he's gone. Izuku would be bolted off, leaving as quick as possible to the location of All Might. He knows that he should have been there, but he couldn't be because of these stupid rules, these stupid ideas that a hero, that a student can't help. A hero, a student that isn't a fully fledged hero can't truly help. So, eventually, yes, he would show up. Eventually, yes, Izuku would show up. But guess what? He would walk over, and he could hear the beating heart of All Might. Slowly, but surely. He hears the beating heart. More, slower, then slower, and until his heartbeat, his pulse, would become so faint that he can barely tell if he's alive. That's until, well, his literal ability that he's gained from killing a Nomu, well, tells him that All Might has been killed. Izuku's realization, especially on his face, would tell the entire scene. He arrives, but he doesn't just arrive in complete and utter anger, pain, or even a want of destruction. He's arriving in a complete state of nothingness. His body, his strength, everything. It feels so odd. It feels as if he doesn't want to be there, but he knows he should be. It feels as if the power that he has, well, it feels kind of useless. And it feels as if, well, that he wasn't able to help him. That he could do nothing. And it sucks that he could do nothing. But soon, all of that pain, all of the numbness, all of the rage, all of the silence would then stop. A screen would come over his face, the darkness would creep in, but a screen would be there in front of the darkness, and it would say congratulations. Why does it say congratulations? Tears would fill Izuku's eyes as the actual reality of the situation sets in. He wasn't there. But why is the system telling him congratulations? And the system would say that true loss is what was needed, and that he has now entered a truly different state of mind. And not only that, he's gained a truly different power. A power that expands even beyond death itself. He said it before, and he said it 1,000,000 times, that good people die but bad people deserve it. But unfortunately, the good people, well, they are the ones that have to deal with the consequences. But this time, the villains, the true horrible people, will have to deal with the consequences of what has just happened. He could feel the power pulsing through his veins. He could feel something that he's truly never felt before. This is not anger. This is not fear. This is not anything that you could even quantify in normal emotions. But all he can think about is one single word. And all he can think about is one single person. And that, well, is All Might. But as he walks over to the lifeless body of All Might, the one that's on the ground, All For One would tell the kid that he wasn't here to help, that he has nothing now. And there's nothing he could truly do, nothing that could truly save All Might. And Izuku says he knows. He knows he can't save him. But soon, he'll realize every single reason why this dead body should and will be him. As he looks toward All Might, he would put a hand on his head and he would shed the last tear for his fallen #1 hero. The screens would watch on as Izuku would say one more time the name of the #1 hero. All Might, arise. As immediately the body of All Might would change, morphing into a shadowy light creature that symbolizes this #1 hero. Some watching are in shock, others terrified about what is happening. Our #1 hero, I mean, he's alive. No, he's not alive. What is he? Fear would go through the eyes of All For One. What the hell truly is this kid? And then a new quest would come over the screen of Izuku Midoriya. And that new quest would say, take the life of All For One. But with that said, that is the end of part 3 of What If Deku Had Solo Leveling. If you enjoyed, show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, like I said, show some love. And yeah, that's all I got to say. Hope y'all enjoyed. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.